Okay, we are ready for our panelists to come up on stage for a discussion about CDMO capacity and client partnership. All right, so let's start by having each of our panelists introduce themselves. Let's start with you, Patrick. I know we just heard from you, but we'll go down the line.
Yeah, Pat Lucy, CEO of Wheeler Bio.
Hi, Russ Miller, Vice President of Sales and Marketing with Enzene.
Hi, Marissa Elliott, founder and principal consultant of Strand Biotech Consulting.
Hi, Dawn Ecker, BDO, manager of the Biotech Database Informational Services.
Hi, Rotash Kumar, head of the CDMO business unit at Syngene International.
Thank you so much. We'll start with the first question, and let's go down in reverse order this time. What do you say? How do you ensure your capacity planning aligns with actual client requirements rather than just making assumptions?
I think we plan our capacity based on this is again the partnership model that we build with our partners. As I said in the beginning, we at Syngene, we do integrated the discovery, development all the way. So we know, we follow the molecule in our areas basically. When we are onboarding client, is basically we know that is okay. This molecule is moving at what stages, and we build the capacity according to that requirement. That's my view on that.
At least for my clients, since I'm directly not using CDMOs and I'm not a CDMO myself, I think it starts actually with communication. To be able to make sure that there is an understanding between both the client as well as the CDMO, and to have things clear, what needs to happen, how the process is going to work, and I think that's the most important aspect.
Yeah, I'll agree with what Dawn has to say. Frequent communication is going to be key with this. If you're looking at 6-month forecasts from clients to plan capacity, then you're going to probably run into some problems. I know when we first start planning for clients, the needs can even change quite drastically over time. So based on what's going on at the CDMO and with the client, timelines inevitably change, and very, very frequent communication and transparency are the best ways to address that.
Yeah, that's a good answer. So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, it is literally about, there's two folds. It's communication and interest, right? So, as a CDMO, we're out there, we're talking to clients, we're understanding what projects are coming in, we're understanding the balance of that. And in our internal processes, we look at that interest to help make sure that we're balanced against what the need profile is coming forward. But at the end of the day, before a project is signed, it's a clear and directed communication around what the process need is and the timeline. I mean, one of the critical questions is, when are you planning to do your clinical study, right? I mean, that little question right there ensures a healthy dialogue about the ability to deliver and do it on time and in full.
I would say the way Wheeler handles this, first of all, is part of the modular CMC platform is to avoid altogether process development and process optimization prior to phase 1. So the goal is to basically plug and play, cell line, engineering run, GMP run, deliver GMP product to the client. Internally, we handle that through an S&OP process with a cross-functional team to make sure that we have the capacity available to our clients at the right time to make sure their program is not delayed. And that's an ongoing meeting every week to make sure we're monitoring the pipeline, delays and accelerations on programs for whatever reason. But also, as part of the relationship with Pyramid, as part of this partnership is if a client has to reschedule a drug product fill batch, they aren't going to penalize the client for that rescheduling. And so there is some wiggle room in the partnership between Wheeler and Pyramid to make sure that clients aren't paying unnecessary termination or cancellation or delay fees if a program slips for whatever reason. And so we're trying to build in the relationship here some flexibility for our clients, but also making sure we're delivering on time in full.
Thank you. Are we okay starting at the same ends? I know I'm putting you on the spot, Ritesh, because you don't have time to think about your answer as much. All right. How do you balance multiple clients competing for the same capacity windows?
I believe it's just the question was ended the same way. Is like, is it working? Yeah, it's working now. Again, I mean, we do also have the SNOP planning. That's how we manage our multiple clients, is what the capacity is needed and when we have to schedule them accordingly. So we follow strictly the SNOP planning. We understand the client requirement, and then we also get their forecast is well in advance as to at what point of time, when they need their batches also. That's how we do also a similar approach.
Yeah, I think it just again boils down to communication, not only from the client perspective, but from the CDMO perspective.
So it's a good spot to be in, having multiple clients competing for the same capacity window. But this is what contracts are for as well. You should be planning and putting in contracts a year before the manufacturing to reserve the manufacturing space. We all know timelines change for the clients and for the manufacturers, but this is going to be the best way to plan out and make sure that there aren't problems. And then, you can always look back and prioritize patient need or anything like that when you're getting to those timelines. But the best way to avoid that is putting contracts in place well before the manufacturing starts.
So, those are all really good answers. As a partner to clients that are bringing a drug forward through in development, one of the critical aspects that hasn't been talked about yet is trust, right? The team is trusting you to create a solution for them and deliver on time. And so, how do you enable that trust? You don't take on more than you can do. And so, as has been mentioned, communication is important. And every CDMO in this floor has an SNOP and planning process, right? And so, if you're enabling good communication and good understanding of what their deliverables are and when they need them and what that process timeline is, then you can build in on the front end, this is where our capacity sits, this is what we have available, this is how we can help you. This may not be a popular answer, but the best thing to be is, if you don't have the capacity, help them find the solution, right? The worst thing you can do is overpromise and underdeliver. Because every one of these biotechs in an emerging space, their funding is dependent and demanded on meeting critical timeline elements. And so if you miss that by 30 days, that's an investment funding that doesn't happen. If you miss a clinical start by 10 days, that's $10,000 in penalties every day that clinical study doesn't start. So communication, trust, planning, all of these are super critical to being able to be successful.
Yeah, I think that we at Wheeler internally have two identical GMP suites that leverage disposable technology. So those two suites are completely fungible. So if there is a conflict, there is an ability to basically run parallel processes in the building. And I echo Russell's comments with regard to transparency and timely communication. And the other part of building the team at Wheeler is intentionally hiring people that have worked both on the innovator side as well as on the services side. Because what we say to clients is we know that every single one of our clients is trying to do something that's never been done before with probably not enough money in a ridiculous timeline. So we can empathize with them, and they need to empathize with us because we're doing that with 15 other customers. So it's building that trust and transparency, but also having an internal team that's been on the innovator side that understands what innovators are going through and why they call you on a Monday morning saying they absolutely need tox material shipped by a certain time frame because it may be tied to a tranched investment milestone. So it's transparency, communication, and being empathetic to what they're trying to accomplish is critically important.
Yeah, thank you for that. I really appreciate the comments about honesty and just being honest with those you're working with. How do you build flexibility into capacity planning when client needs can change rapidly? Next time I'll go in reverse.
You can continue that. I think flexibility is the key in the CDMO business, is basically. So I would say that's that's another value, is basically that you are adding to the customers. I mean, in my view, is as the expectations are growing, is basically you build your network, you build your infrastructure to create a flexibility for all your partners, is basically. That's how I see that. When clients are coming to you, is again, they're going to compete against your capacity. They're going to compete against your resources also, is the technical resources from both from PD or analytical. But you have to build that flexibility in your organization so that you can better serve to all your clients. Is basically that's my view. And you have to manage that. Is again with the honest communication, and I would say that that's where the trust play a key role there. They really your partners really need to know you, that where you are struggling and why you are struggling and how you can overcome with that.
I don't really have anything to say to that.
So a good way to build in flexibility when you're choosing your CDMO, make sure you're choosing a CDMO who has a good track record, who has multiple suites, who has, the ability to be flexible. As long as you're doing that, it shouldn't be a problem. CDMOs build in flexibility by having, redundant qualified personnel and multiple suites. And while capacity can fill up, things are so fluid as far as planning for customers go that flexibility is just a requirement. Programs change all the time. I don't think I've ever run a program that didn't change. So it's just every CDMO is used to having to be flexible. You just need to make sure you pick a CDMO who's capable of that.
So I'm just going to leverage off one thing you said, planning. Planning builds flexibility. How is that? How does planning build flexibility? Well, if you have your clinical study and you understand what that time frame is, you lock in an initial fill date, right? The planning team is acquiring all the materials to be able to run that run. And then 2 months later, you're having difficulty finding patients. So you're going to push back your clinical start date. Well, that's cool. I've got all your materials. That means that my planning has allowed flexibility to be initiated within that facility. Redundancy, additional suites, all of that helps and provides another level of flexibility, but I'm going to go with planning enables flexibility. If you have good planning, if you have good processes, then you can build some additional flexibility because, as has been stated, development always changes, and it's a constant. So.
Yeah, I echo what the panel has said. I think with Wheeler, one of the things, and it gets back to the communication. So every customer's CEO and I speak every month, every 30 days, for 30 minutes, whether we need to or not. It's just a check-in, and I think from that perspective, we can understand whether corporate milestones are getting delayed, funding may be delayed, programs may be accelerated, or what have you. And so we can translate that, or I can translate that to the internal team so we can measure that against all the projects. Because if you have 10 to 15 clients, there's a good chance that some people want to accelerate and some want to delay for whatever reasons. And so I think if you're constantly communicating at every level of the client organization, you can piece that information together to put together a good plan across the portfolio.
All right, thank you. Is it okay if I start with you this time, Patrick?
How about it?
All right.
It's a hard question.
It doesn't look too bad. All right, how do you maintain quality standards while maximizing capacity utilization?
Yeah, I think quality is as I said in my presentation, is really table stakes in the space. I think if we look at the reasons why products are delayed with BLAs, is the majority of the time it's CMC issues, and so I think that we have the quality team involved both on our development side and in our GMP area, and making sure we have good practices across both, and making sure we're documenting appropriately. So I think quality has to be in the culture of the organization, and really sometimes maybe at the expense of throughput. because the last thing you need is to delay a client program because of a quality issue.
Ditto. I mean, sorry, I couldn't help myself. I mean, 25 plus years, there is never an instance where quality is not the foundation. You cannot be a global operating CDMO working with clients across the spectrum, cross product space, without having a quality system that's ready to go at every stage, at every level. If there is ever a question of quality, you're doing it wrong. Okay, so while you may have multiple levels of development in your space, discovery is going to be R&D, not quality. That doesn't matter. Having a quality system that sits over the organization creates a culture of quality that you execute against, and that is just critical of importance.
Yeah, I'll mimic what they said. Quality just can't be the variable that's ever adjusted to meet demand. You need robust processes, you need a good quality system, trained staff. It's just so important. Like he said, the main problem companies have is the CMC. So you just want to prioritize having a CDMO that has a high quality product, and do proper investigations when you're first looking into your CMOs.
Yeah, I would just echo what everyone else says. Quality is one of the, if not the founding block for success. You really do have to have your quality systems in place. You do have to follow your quality processes in order to be successful.
Yeah, I echo the same thing. We as Syngene, we have a slogan over there, is basically nothing at the cost of quality, compliance, and safety. That's pretty true, basically, in my view. Is because, without quality, you just cannot. We have quality on the floor all the time, and at each level.
Okay, next question. I'll start with you, Patrick. How do you communicate capacity constraints to clients while maintaining strong relationships?
I think it gets back to everything we've been saying about transparency and routine communication. Between internal project meetings, joint project team meetings, CEO to CEO conversations monthly, it's a constant flow of communication to make sure we're managing expectations appropriately. But again, also having capacity that there's flexibility built into that in terms of the multiple suites, the disposable bioreactors, disposable components. It gives us a significant ability to be flexible. But more often than not, if you've got a decent mix in your portfolio, there's going to be accelerations, decelerations across the portfolio. So it's this constant communication that's a key part of this.
So when you are setting up a CDMO and you're looking at how you build out your footprint, having that redundancy, having the additional bioreactors, having the inventory in place allows you the opportunity to build in that planning part, which allows flexibility, which allows you to deal with constraints that do come forward, because it does happen. You'll have one client that, as Patrick mentioned, has a critical deadline for a tox. And then you have another client that is not ready to go forward and is going to be pushing out their tox manufacturing. And so if you only had the one lab, you only had the one pilot suite, then you do have a problem with your process. But effective planning, effective communication, all of that allows you to manage these challenges that come forward with development.
Yeah, so as far as communicating with clients, the worst conversation you can have is the one that just comes too late. Clients are surprisingly open to even bad news. I've always found that to be the case. So it's just really, really important that as soon as you see even a yellow flag, that it's communicated, even if it may not become a problem but clients need to know that transparency is your top priority, that they aren't getting information that's being somewhat changed to support getting the client in. They just need to know that you're being honest and transparent and communicating with them as often as you need to.
Yes, I kind of agree with what everyone else has said. Earlier is better to definitely flag those issues. And again, even if they're not going to turn out to be issues, I would far rather get a call saying, hey, we might have a problem, than a call saying, we have a problem. So I think that being proactive, communication, transparency, all of these kind of go hand in hand with quality to make sure that we can balance everyone's needs.
Yeah, again, the communication and transparent, I would say it's an honest feedback to the client is always important for them, in my view, is basically. That's my point over here.
Okay, I think we have time for maybe one more question. We have about 5 minutes left. Can we start on the end again? All right. What contingency plans do you have for equipment failures, product issues, or unexpected downtime?
Yeah, I think you have to plan the redundancy in your infrastructure. Is basically, as I said, is like when you are building up these capacity, you have to have the redundant systems. You have to plan for even for spare parts and preventive maintenance well in advance. Is basically, I've seen in my career is basically sometimes it's like, oh, your pumping skid is broken, but then you are struggling for spare parts if you are not planning ahead of that. That's my view over there. Plan ahead of any failure is basically.
Yeah, I would go along the same lines of, failing to plan is planning to fail. Just very, very, very simple. Order those extra bags, a little bit of extra. It's just that anything can happen these days. Accidents can happen, things can go bad, and you don't want to be caught, oh, we can't run this, we have to stop this process because we don't have, component X. That's just not what anyone wants to hear.
Yeah, risk management should definitely be a proactive process at your CDMO, not reactive. So you need to make sure they have preventative maintenance programs, backup equipment where possible, secondary suppliers for critical raw materials. You just need to make sure that your CDMO is proactive when it comes to risk management, and then that should solve most things. But of course, things can come up, but yeah.
I'm going to take a slightly different tactic. These are all very important points, and they should be listened to. But the other side of the coin is when the problem happens, when the challenge happens, have a plan. Building awareness, immediately communicating, that's awesome. But come with a plan. It may not be the plan that goes forward because, again, you have to collaborate with your client, their regulatory team, depending on what the issue is at hand. But coming forward with a plan means that you've already thought about it. You're creating the solution. You're trying to mitigate the outcome. You're trying to create success out of the challenge that you might have faced. And at the end of the day, that is going to be much better received than simply like, sorry, the bag failed. What do you want us to do? That is the opposite of good. That is bad. So when it happens, create a plan, a solution for success that allows you to overcome the obstacle and create positivity out of negativity.
Yeah, I think from a Wheeler perspective, there's really two elements to this. Is the infrastructure, again, having two identical production suites with the identical equipment, disposable, single-use materials gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of building redundancy in the operations. But also from a modular CMC perspective, we had an issue about 6-7 months ago where a supplier had a media issue, and we were very reliant on this particular media, and it woke us up to the fact that we needed redundancy and resiliency in our platform. So is there a backup media that we could go to? Are there backup materials within the modular CMC platform to make sure we have kind of platform redundancy and resiliency to make sure we can deliver if there's a supply disruption? I think we've learned a lot about this, and during COVID, But I think that as a CDMO, you need to have those plans in place to make sure that, like you're saying, when a material fails or there's a supply disruption, we've already thought about it and what the backup provider we would go to from a media perspective, et cetera. So that's putting a lot of thought in, and we literally have a corporate goal at Wheeler this year in terms of building redundancy across the entire modular CMC platform to make sure that we're prepared for those disruptions and how we can respond to them.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. That about seals up our time. And thank you all for being here for this. And appreciate you stopping by the BPI Theater. We'll be resuming at, I think it's about 2 o'clock. Is that right? Yeah, 2 o'clock. So thank you so much, and thank you all for joining me up here.